I actually have a funny story. I can't remember what year it was or when it was, but I remember getting my bag off the the spinning wheel thing at the airport, and on my bag tag, someone wrote chokers on it. So one of the bag handlers out the back at some point between the 09-10 seasons just wrote chokers on my bag tag.
When Wayne rolled in the door, this club didn't have a lot of belief.
There was a lot of people that had gone out of their way to make sure that we knew that we were chokers.
We had a little bit of a thing there about the true believers.
To all the true believers!
If one thing changed that year, it mightn't have been our year.
Put 2 down for Nightingale!
It just had that air about it where what we're doing, it wasn't going to be stopped.
The Dragons win the grand final!
There was just so much relief after waiting 31 years.
We've been knocked down and got back up again each time, and now we're here! To all the true believers, let's celebrate it!
Hi, I'm Jason Nightingale, and you are listening to the True Believers podcast. Today I'm sitting down with 2010 Clive Churchill medalist Darius BOYD. We'll start at the start. We first met coming down to the Dragons in 2009. Probably starting, you were one of only 2 players, yourself and Jeremy Smith, that had a premiership under your belt. I remember speaking to you a little bit about the fact that you already had a premiership. But what do you remember from that, and what sort of experience was winning you the first premiership that you got with the Broncos?
Yeah, I suppose I was probably just really young, to be honest. First year in, playing with Darren Lockyer and Webke and Sip and Seaver, those type of blokes. So probably just rode their coattails a little bit and playing on the wing. 20-something games in, 19 years old. Probably just thought it happened every year. And after year after year after that, a couple of years didn't make it. You kind of realise how hard they are to win and how hard they are to get there. And I wasn't probably thinking about grand finals coming to the Dragons. It was probably just coming down to further my career. I wanted to play fullback if I got the chance to, which I did, which was really enjoyable. And I was lucky enough to come down to a quality team that had been, there or thereabouts in final series before. And I think Wayne just put the icing on the cake.
So 2009, obviously Wayne moves. What sort of conversations did he have with you when he was coming to that decision of coming down the gong?
It was pretty easy in the end. I think I wanted to stay in Brisbane, if I was being honest. I had one more year to go in Brisbane. I had the 2009 season to go, and Wayne told me to go have a chat to the head staff there at the time that was staying around about me. So he obviously knew there was something going on, and I spoke to them, and they just said, "Look, you can stay for 2009, but we won't re-sign you after that. So you might as well go now where you're playing good football." And I'd actually just played Origin in 2008 for the first time, so that was pretty hard for me to take. But at the same time, I'm very grateful that I did make the decision to come down to the Dragons, and Wayne gave me that opportunity to come down. And he kind of told me I was going to play. He wanted me to play centre, I think, originally, because Gaz left, and Brett Morris was going to play fullback. So you had yourself and Wendell on the wings. I remember him saying something about guaranteeing spots, and I think it was only maybe Coops and yourself, or Coops and Wendell, or someone like that. They only gave 2 spots that are guaranteed in that back line.
Coops and Dell. Favourites.
And
favourites when we first got there.
Yeah, so I think, and then pre-season, I think I trained at centre and fullback, and nothing was set in stone, but ended up working out that I played fullback, and I think it was my best position. I'm glad that it stayed that way.
Yeah, well, I think it's crazy to hear that you go and have a conversation, and beyond 2009 they weren't going to re-sign you there. That's pretty crazy, especially the point in the career you're at, and probably said a lot about the management at the time, and obviously great that created the opportunity for us down at the Dragons. But when you did come around, what I remember is our first little period in 09 pre-season. I think you toured. Did you tour the 09 season with the Kangaroos overseas?
08 one before 09.
Yeah, sorry, before the 09 thing, and then
straight into camp.
Yeah, straight into camp. Myself, you, Jezza, I think that was it that went in fresh. And what do you remember about that? Obviously, experiencing those sort of camps with the Broncos beforehand, you knew it was going to be tougher than probably what a lot of us thought.
Yeah, they're always hard, and I think Wayne always loved them and backed them. And I think as a playing group, it always brings you together and get a sense of achievement and belonging, I suppose, and brings a group together pretty quickly. But at the time, the 3 days you're doing them, they're not enjoyable, as you know, and they're hard to come back from, especially if you've come off a tour or been on a way, playing footy for rep teams, and then you have to come back probably a bit underdone straight into those camps. They're always challenging, but I think it's what sets your team up and your group up for a good season when you put in the hard yards.
What I remember about that is you weren't really that underdone. I felt like you kept it up, and I think you had an insight into what the camp was going to be like. We'd all been on Nathan Brown camps the year before. I think we did Jindabyne and caused all sorts of trouble. We ended up at the pub every night, and we thought it was going to be something like that, but I think it was you had a little bit more insight, and you go, no, this is not going to be easy. And I remember going, oh, geez, now I'm anxious. I slept well last night. Now I'm probably a little bit nervous. So. And I think that kicked on into that 09 off season. Once we got back and we're doing these like ridiculous 1.2s, which I suppose you'd grown up doing, Jeremy Hickman's and that. How did you find? I know myself and BMOS and the other outside backs that were watching you were like you were leading it all. How did you find that? Did you find it easy to adapt, or were you trying to impress a bit extra? Like I felt like you were in better shape than most of us. Do you think that was out of you already knew what you're in for?
Yeah, it's probably a bit of both. I suppose when you play in a team sport, you want to impress your peers and your teammates and make sure that they're someone that they want to play with you and you want to play with them. And I think that's something that I probably went down with that mentality. And like you said, I was probably lucky enough having Jezza for 3 years prior that I knew the 1.2s, I knew what was expected and what we had to do to get the job done. So I was probably ready for it a lot longer before you guys were.
I suppose the adapting to Wollongong life, being a Brizzy boy, they're quite a social sort of crowd, bigger place than the Gong. How did you find that? All I remember is you living above the chicken shop or whatever it was down there.
It's Noodle Box.
Noodle Box, above the Noodle Box, very close to some of the watering holes of Wollongong. Tell us a little bit about that experience, your housemates, and how you adapted to living the slower pace of Wollongong life.
Yeah, I was pretty lucky that Nick Emmett come down as well from the Broncos, and because we were on that tour at the end of the year, I think you were on that tour as well, the World Cup tour. So Nick, he, we obviously organised we're going to live together. He found a place, so it's probably, and he loved a beer, so that's probably why he found that right above Noodle Box and across the road from one of the drinking spots of Wollongong. But that made my job easier. Nick was a little bit older than us, and so I just come down. There was a house there ready to go, or a unit there ready to go. I had to bring a bit of furniture and bring my car down, and I was set to go. So that was, I was probably lucky that Nick come down at the same time and probably helped set up before I got there, which made my job easier because I was a little bit nervous moving away from home. It was the first time being out of Queensland, but it was an exciting challenge as well. I think something that I think you learn a lot about yourself and you can grow a lot as a person moving away from home, and it's not always easy, but I've always made decisions based on the best interests of my rugby league career, and I changed schools when I was in year 10 to better off my rugby league career. I went to the Dragons, I've been in Newcastle, back to Brisbane, so all because of I thought they were best decisions for my rugby league career, and you only have a short career, and I thought I'm going to make the most of it as much as I can.
So we got to 09 season and everything was going okay until the back end of the year. What are your memories of the back end of that season? Obviously the first semi-final after finishing minor premiers.
Yeah, I remember obviously we played Para in that last game at Cogra and we pumped them. And looking back, I can't remember if I thought about it at the time, but looking back, I had to play the same team, the same place a week later, and I think they had a couple of late inclusions, some good players, maybe Hindmarsh and a couple others that didn't play the game before, but it was probably a bit of overconfident from the game before. We weren't going that well before that. I think we lost 3 or 4 in a row, which I've been used to being at the Broncos, especially with the Origin players we used to have at the Broncos. There's a lot of they used to call it a bit of a slump Origin period, and I think we did have a little bit of that at the Dragons as well. More so probably other years than 09, but I was used to those type of late season fades a little bit just because it's a long year. I suppose that last win probably gave maybe a lot of us some confidence that we probably didn't really have, or gave us a bit of a head that we probably thought we were back on track when we really weren't. But it's always hard to play a team and then to go back and play them a week later I think it's really hard to get up and be motivated again, and I think that's what we kind of seen.
The advantage almost sits with the team, the underdog, the team that lost there, and rolling up the bad end of the old school system where we have to travel and play another team no matter if you finish first. Obviously going up and playing your former team, how did that go for you personally?
I always enjoy one. I love playing at Suncorp, whether I was playing for Brisbane or the Dragons in Newcastle. It's one of the best stadiums to play at, so I don't think there's much advantage for the Broncos sometimes because it's just such a great stadium, and there's a lot of stadiums being built lately that makes it a lot easier to go to away trips these days than what it has in the past. But we beat the Broncos up there. I think it was round 4 for the Dragons. It was my first time back, and I think we were pretty comprehensive that night too. So I was pretty confident. I always loved going home, going back to Brisbane. I had a couple of mates in the team still, obviously, so it was enjoyable for me. Obviously not the result, we didn't get the win, but I always looked at those games as a highlight or a little one that you always look forward to a bit more than others.
How do you think Wayne helped get us back on track rolling into that off season?
Yeah, I don't really remember any much talk about it or coming from the leadership group at all, but I suppose I do remember in the papers and all that a fair bit, the old chokers tag and that type of stuff. Not so much. It was more leading up to 2010. I felt that just because we were at the same position again. We come first, and everyone's going, "Oh, they're going to choke again." I actually have a funny story. I can't remember what year it was or when it was, but I remember getting my bag off the spinning wheel thing at the airport, and on my bag tag, someone wrote chokers on it. So one of the bag handlers out the back at some point between the 09-10 seasons just wrote chokers on my bag tag. So they wouldn't have known whose bag it was. It just was a Dragon's bag with a number on it. But so even when if you don't read papers, you try to stay out of the media. You can't get away from some of those things because people find a way to get it to you in some way. So I suppose I've seen it more from the outside than anything. I didn't feel the pressure from within. But it was a tough way to go out. But I think when I look back at that team, with a new coach, a couple of new players, it takes a while to gel. And I think sometimes while we did gel through the year, we just played basic, consistent football, and that gets you 9 times out of 10. That's good enough to get wins. Where in the finals, you've got to be a team that's done it time and time again and be at the best of your game and just be playing at the highest level and sometimes up your game a little bit. I think that's probably where we fell down a little bit. Where I think that 9 season probably led us into 2010, which is probably, when you think about it, having 2 years together, working on plays, working on mateship and all that comes with team sports, culture, all that type of stuff. I think that's what probably won us in 2010 was the way we bonded in 9 and just wanted to get that extra bit better for 10.
Yeah, I remember. So bring you 2010 preseason. Something that sticks out in my mind from memory is all the extra passing that you were doing. Obviously, we were all working on a game, but the amount you worked and how hard you worked on your passing, because obviously it wasn't playing in the centres and wing. It's a bit different. You don't have to work on that. Did you have specific extras? I just remember even being on the end of the drills, or BMOS obviously being on the end and getting centre outside. How much work did you put into that? And I suppose the proof's in the pudding in what you were able to produce in 09 and also with the try assist in 2010. What went into that, and did you set goals around that, or how did you work so hard on developing that side of your game?
Firstly, I remember I was with Carmichael at the Broncos, who used to work a heap on it. He used to grab all the centres and wingers and work on 3v2s, 2v1s. There's a couple of younger outside backs. We always worked together on that. So I probably got it from him originally. And then I remember in 2009, I was pretty proud of the season I had. But I remember, again, media reports, a bit of a knock on our team and probably a little bit on knock on me was that we didn't score enough points. And it was about me, out the back, passing 3-on-2s, 2-on-1s, all that type of stuff that I couldn't create enough. So I think I probably had that in my mind as well. But more so just knowing that, as a footy player to get better, you always got to practice and get, practice your extras and do what you got to do as part of your job. My job was to set up tries at the back and be safe under the high ball. That's probably 2 main jobs. So I always practice my catching, and I always thought I was good enough at doing 3-on-2s in the passing, but no one's perfect. So I always thought I could be better. And the more I practiced and the more I got comfortable with playing with Sowie and Hornby and those guys that pass me the ball, and then obviously you guys on the wings to make sure, all the centres, whoever I'm passing to, that we're all in the right spots, that it all works to a T. Then that was going to be what the practice I needed to do.
Yeah, so what sort of things did you find out of that? You weren't obviously motivated by the chokers tag, except when the baggage handler put it on your bag as opposed to everyone else's. But and then reading some results about not getting points. What sort of things did drive you? I always admired the way you train, and even put myself next to you to train like that. But what sort of things do you think helped shaped your work ethic and ability to find ways to improve?
I just think I was a perfectionist growing up, and fear of failure was another one. So I always wanted to be not so much the best, but be my best. And I couldn't accept anything less than my best. So I was very hard on myself. If I made an error, or I didn't do my job, or missed an opportunity, or whatever that was. I was probably at that age, and when I was at the Dragons, I was probably reading papers and things about myself too much. Fear of what people were saying about me, and worried about what people thought. Wanting to always impress people, which on one hand probably drove me to try and be as successful as possible, but on the other hand it was probably a very negative and unhealthy way to live and way to think.
So we're getting into the 2010 season now. Obviously everything's going on track. You put all that work in, like you said, and we start getting into that origin period. And what do you remember around the momentum that we created, and then how we managed through the lull, and what you did personally to keep I suppose on the field as much as possible in that period where you've got a hectic schedule? Origin,
especially in the Queensland team, was as good a time as ever to just get a break, to be honest. We have a 10-day camp. Sometimes you can play a heap of games in a small space of time, or you're always training, where I felt like Mel and Kevy back into the Origin years was more about just getting the team rested and making sure that we're all bonding together and coming as a group, that we're just fresh and ready to go on the Wednesday night. So and then Wayne was also great at letting those Origin players come back just for team run before a game. So if you played Wednesday for Origin, you had a Saturday game, you just come back on Friday, you might not even do the team run, might do a swim in the pool. You play Saturday and he might give you the whole week off until the following team run again. I think the combo of those two, while we're playing games of footy, and they're all hard games of footy, and you're playing a couple of games in a small space of time, I think those long rest periods of not training, I think that really keeps you fresh, ready, fit, and mind on the job. And I think the lull after Origin, I don't think it was a long one. I think we only lost 3 games from memory in 2010, which it always seems to happen. And like I said, I think we had a lot more Origin players playing in that 2010 season and 9. But I think that's what you need. You need your best players available at the end of the year in playoffs, and you need them fresh and ready to go. And I think that's 2 things we both had in the lead up to the 2010 final series. And I think our slump was a bit earlier this year than it was the year prior. I think we lost 3 in the early stages, in rounds 20s, around there. And I think we had a couple of wins leading up to finals, where I think 2009 we won the very last game. So we kind of left our run a little bit too late.
Another impact around that time after Origin, especially Gaz talks about it, is him coming back to the team. Do you remember that making a difference, and what was your sort of impression of that? That was around the lull time, and probably a good time for him to come and get warmed up.
Yeah, well, firstly, I remember, I think he come back. I think it was announced he was coming back around Origin time, because I don't think I played in his first game from memory. But I mean, as a fan, really, I mean, I was young, and I mean, I've watched Gaz play for years, so I was pretty excited just to have Gaz in our team, and couldn't wait to go back to training and meet him. So from my point of view, I was pretty pumped to have Gaz come back to the team. I mean, you guys had all played with him before, but I hadn't. So Gaz is like Darren Lock at the Bronx to the Dragons, So I was like, how cool is that? I get to go back and play with Gaz. And the other thing, I think it helped our team as well, because I think we were left-hand side dominated a lot, and it was a lot well documented and spoken about. But I think Gaz and Sowie and yourself had a real good combo there on the right, and I think that just gave us that little bit extra in attack that we needed to get the job done in 10. And I think that definitely probably gave everyone a bit of confidence too.
With that block run, it's quite simple. You talk about short and long. What is your role? I spoke to Benny Cray around his role and how the fact that he was the greatest decoyer of 2009, 2010, 11 season. I suppose give me a little bit of nerdy rugby league detail in what your role is out the back of that lead and what determines your decision making.
Obviously, it's a whole team's thing. We've got to get right numbers for a start when you're playing that shape, and then the halfback has to take it to the line, but not too far where by the time he passes to me, the centre's jamming me or and I don't have time to throw it off. But Benny Cray ran some good decoys, but he also ran some good lines and scored a heap of tries too. I remember that year. So I had Matt Cooper and Brett Morris outside me, so it was kind of pick your poison of who you try to defend. But for me, I'll just, depending on what the team's doing, if they're jamming or if they're sliding, it really depends on how I play it. So if they're jamming, then I'll slow my run up and I want the ball early off my halfback. And if they're sliding, then I'll be running really fast and I'll catch the pass a bit wider. So, and I'll tell the half to pass it to me a bit later, just so I can get to the centre and play 3-on-2. Otherwise, if they're jamming in defence and coming at me, then I just want it. I want it early because I know that if the centre's coming, the winger, in most good teams, your winger follows. So then the centre's jamming me, the winger's going to jam our centre. So I've already, as soon as I feel that pressure from the centre, I'm just throwing long every time. It was kind of, that was our attack. I mean, Wayne left our attack up to us pretty much, and we got bagged. Even in 2010, we won the comp. They bagged us saying we couldn't score enough points, and the Roosters, they had Carney and Pearce and all these, and Astor, and all these guys could score points. But in the grand final, we ended up scoring 32 points because when you win the game with your defense, and on the back, and then the attack comes on the back of that, you start to pile up points. And I think that was our team for a lot of the time I was at the Dragons for those 3 years. Really, we defended well. It'd be a low-scoring game for 50, 60, 70 minutes. It'd be 12-10, 12-8. Then we'd end up winning the game 30-8, 30-10 because we'd end up piling the points because we just suffocated the team for so long, and that was on the back of our defense. And but back to the block, it's just it's a really simple play. It's 5-on-4. And if you make the right decisions, and all you have to do is you might do it 10 times, and if you complete it 3 out of 10, that's still 3 tries, 18 points. So don't have to dress anything up. Sometimes trying to be too fancy can get you undone as well.
You're hooking BMOS up with all these tries. Gave me a few as well. Gaz gave me a couple. He tries to say that he gave me more than he did. But, we get into that season, and like you said, that we started to peak back up towards the end of that season, have a couple of good wins rolling in. First semi-final or qualifying final. Manly, do you remember much about that? Yeah,
I remember being pretty nervous for that one in particular because obviously for what happened the year before, we lost at home in that same game, first versus eighth, and a lot of external pressure on us, I guess. And the other thing, I think Manly limped into the finals that year too. I think they had a heap of injuries, so everyone was expecting us to just roll them over and win easily. And I think that game, it kind of probably worked out well for us that we played Manly, who really just limped in with some injuries because I think we just needed to get over that hump. Once we got that first win, we didn't blow them off the park, which we probably should have. I think the scoreline suggested that in the end. I think it was 28-0. I think it was pretty close for quite a while, but I think it was just that monkey off the back. We needed to get a bit of confidence to get to the next stage, have that week off, which is really important. Have that week off as well, refreshen everyone up, and get ready for that Tigers game. So I think blessing in disguise that we played a team limping in with some of their best players out to just give us that confidence, get over that hump, and get on to the next level.
Then we get through and end up playing the Tigers, and I suppose that's where some of the baggage where you didn't have to deal with and I didn't have to deal with is that the memories or nightmares of 2005 versus the Tigers. Do you remember that other than in the media?
Yeah, I don't remember that one as much as far as pressure. I mean, for me, I just remember going there and seeing red and white everywhere. That was probably not one of the first times, but I'd probably realised that Cogger on the hill with all the signs. But I've really realised as I went to the Dragons how important and how much appreciation their fans have for the team, and how much love and how much support they give the players there too. So I really enjoyed that from all the Dragons fans, and it's something that I really remembered for that West Tigers game. I just remember seeing sea of red and white, and it was more like once you get to those big games, it's game time, and it's when I think as a player, that's ones you train for in November and do those army camps, because a packed house with half of it screaming for you to get into the grand finals while you play. And I think, other guys might have been different, but for me, I think I was more nervous for the Manly game. But once we got to the Tigers one, I felt like we just needed to get out there and play and try and do our best.
What do you remember about the flow of the game and how sort of much of a slog it was?
I think we went into half-time down, which I think we'd been, again, spoken about in the media, how we weren't a team that come from behind well. We couldn't score enough points to come from behind. We were a front-running team. we'd suffocate with defence. We'd score early, and then Sowie would just kick from deep, and we'd just play the long game. And we always did that all year. And I think that was a bit of confidence booster for us too, and a bit of resilience too, I guess, to come in a prelim final. And with all the, I suppose, hoodoos from the past with a lot of the players, from, like you said, those 05 teams and whatnot, about getting to those prelims and not jumping over the line, for us to come back from down at half time, and we scraped through, but we got there.
What were your memories on that sort of final play from the Tigers, and then what were the sort of feelings you had being part of the closure of that game, I suppose?
Yeah, I don't think much of it at the time. I suppose taking the ball dead, but I suppose when I think back or look back now, like if it took a funny bounce and I missed it and they score, like I'm going down in history as killing the Dragons' chance of getting a grand final, and I'd be hated from Dragons fans forever. So when I look back and what the flip side of that would have been, then I'm very glad that I didn't stuff that up. Getting to a grand final is just as hard as, or winning it is harder, obviously, but getting there is just as hard. And sometimes you just got to get there. And once you get there, it's a new game and anyone can do it on the day. So I missed it for a couple of years after the 06 one. And I felt more a part of this one being a fullback, and had a couple of good years at the Dragons. So I felt like I was contributing a lot more than what I was in 2006. So it was a lot more rewarding for me personally. Just a bit more mature, and could really, I suppose, take it in my stride and actually enjoy the week and grand final week and breakfast and everything that comes with it too. It's an exciting time.
06, were you stationed up in the eastern suburbs of Bondi Beach, and where we were positioned for the Tigers and the grand final as well? Is that your home away from home during the final series for yourself?
Yeah, Swiss Grand, I think it was called. Bondi. Yeah, so most of the year we used to always stay at the Coogee Bay, Crown Plaza. And then for finals, we used to mix it up and stay at Swiss Grand and Bondi, just to, a bit nicer, a bit more fancier, a bit like the sun's come out, it's beach season, a bit more enjoyable, a bit more, something to look forward to, I guess. And Wayne was always good at mixing things up like that. You'd remember we would always train away from the stadium in pre-season. We used to train at the uni. Even in Brisbane and other clubs I've been at, we'd always train away from the ground, and then a week before round one, we'd come back and get back into our facility, and round one's coming along because you're back at headquarters and training where you normally train. He used to do the same for finals. Once finals come around, go to a new hotel, you might stay down a bit longer, an extra night to prepare. You might go out for a dinner together or do some bonding. In that way as well. So we'll go watch a movie as a group, something like that, just to make it real special. And I think that there's an exciting time in your life coming up, and that's the finals, and that's why we play, and that's what I think Wayne was good at, making those special occasions extra special.
Yeah, that week you spoke about a little bit. What were your memories of that grand final breakfast, and do you have some fond memories in that week?
I remember walking out on that big fanfare in Sydney. I think it was Darling Harbour or something. Heaps of fans, one of those promo things you do, and there's fans everywhere. We're all dressed in our suits, and so I remember that grand final breakfast. I remember that. I remember Bo Scott nearly taking my leg off at a training session. I think it was at Redfern. About the day or two before the game. That wasn't fun. That was a bit silly.
I'd forgotten about that. That was hilarious. That might have even been captain's run. It was captain's run. Oh, let's run through that. I just had a flashback on that, and especially us pretty outside backs going, what is this idiot forward doing? Was it like a kick pressure or a late? It was almost like if it was in a game, he would have been suspended.
Yeah, they tried to tackle me. It was something weird. Captain's run, you're never doing any tackling.
No tackling, especially on outside backs. It's bad.
It wasn't bad. It was just like a cork or something, but I was a bit of a prima donna in that way anyway. So made it a bit worse than what it was. And Bo, being Bo, just that's how he plays, whether it's training or games, he's 100 miles an hour, and that's why we love him. We just don't like playing against him, I guess.
So we get to GF, your memories on that. I mean, you talked about being 50-50 run out at West, when we play the Tigers in there. What were your memories on running out on grand final day and the prep, getting to the game and the build up to that?
Yeah, I just remember it being a long day, and I remember it raining on that day too. And as you know, as fullbacks and wingers, it's not ideal for us. I get quite nervous about catching bombs and staring at water hit me in the face when I'm trying to catch, and my passing game and all that type of stuff. I think the weather can hinder my game a little bit. So, but yeah, luckily the rain stopped later in the afternoon and didn't really come back until we'd already had the game basically won. So, but I remember being a bit nervous about that. But apart from that, it's always a long day, a lot of thinking. But once you get out there and warming up, it's always the same. Obviously warming up inside usually though with grand finals. And then when you run out and you just see all the fans and the sea of red and white and all the signs, everyone just proud of their team, and they're all there cheering for you, all your families in the stands, everyone watching at home on TV. It's not a bigger occasion than the grand final.
Yeah, that game, memories of that game went to plan at the start, but obviously the middle of the first half and even the end of the first half. What were your memories on that? Do you still carry confidence into halftime then?
Yeah, I think so. Like I said before, against the Tigers, we went in that game with a deficit at half time. I think it was the same with the Roosters, running down by 2, but we weren't known for being good at turning deficits around at half time. But I think we gained confidence from the West Tigers game, and it wasn't a big one. And I think one of the Roosters' tries was a bit of a 50-50 call with that knock-on kick thing. I still don't think it was a try. So, but yeah, I think we just had to get back in the game, just play that grinding football, playing like it was 0-0, and kick on the back of Sowie, and then when our plays work, they work, and go from there. I think that's what we did.
Yeah, it was sort of like 1-1 and no tries. Allegedly, BMOS went out just before Gaz's try, but that's still, it is what it is. And then we came back out after half time and started to gain a bit of momentum. Do you remember that momentum, and what was your feeling like when we started to gain control?
I think it was just down their end a fair bit. I think that's even today, this 10 years later, but the game still played the same. If you spend enough time down the other end of the field against attacking their line, whether you put on a good shape or you just throw it to a forward and he dives over, if you spend enough time, someone will make the wrong decision, someone will get a quick play of the ball, and you'll score a try. And I think a couple of those tries, I think that bounce pass one that you scored was one of them. I think Dino's one, Feensy's one. Those two are, again, the same. They weren't spectacular set-up play tries. They were just being down there, consistent pressure, other team getting tired, and you eventually find a way over the try line.
Talking about spectacular setups, you got a little. I gave you a try assist by scoring off the back of one of your trademark passes on the edge. Do you remember the setup to that? And what was your sort of decision-making process for that to set up that try?
Benny Hornby come around to the right side late. Usually it's Jamie Sowie on the right, but Benny come around, and I think Toddy Carney defended pretty well when I've watched the replays of it. He didn't really bite in. The centre didn't jam, so I tried to just run fast to the centre and make it a 3-on-2, but Toddy was coming. He was defending it pretty well, but when you look back, BJ Leluh was on the wing there as a young kid. I think he was only 18 playing in the grand final, probably only played a handful of games. You have someone like Gaz there who, BJ jams too early and lets me have the chance to throw it to you. And you say, if we didn't have Gaz there, for example, Gaz scored a try in the first half. And a lot of people don't see these type of things, but it still works to this day. A lot of, off-the-ball stuff, and Gaz's presence, like Benny Cray's presence when he runs through the decoy on the left and I get out the back and it's 3-on-2. Same with Gaz. If Gaz isn't there, if Bo Scott's playing centre, or Chase Stanley or someone else that didn't have Gaz's resume as a centre, BJ might not jam there and doesn't open the spot up. Because like I said, Toddy defended it really well. He had me. The centre stayed on the centre, but for whatever reason, BJ wanted to jam and thought he had to. Gave me the chance to pass it to you.
Hornby behind Scott, and here's Boyd in from the back. Trouble! Nightingale has scored for the Dragons!
What was the moment where you knew you were going to win, and did you find a little bit of time to celebrate on the field?
Yeah, well, that's one thing. You don't really get a lot of opportunity, whether it's in any game, let alone grand finals. But I can't remember. It would have been after the second last try, so maybe it was when we were 20-something to 8 up. By then, when you're scoring and you're walking back and everyone's talking and you're having a drink, and you start to look around the crowd and you can hear the Dragons fans a bit more louder and they're standing up and the flags are waving, and the Roosters ones are probably sitting down and not doing too much, and the rain's coming down then too. So once we had that probably 3-score lead and it's raining and it's probably 20 minutes left, you kind of know that it's pretty hard for them to come back, and the kind of team that we were, which was a defensive team, that we probably had it in the bag. And you never take anything for granted, but that team we had, there's a lot of experience in there. Been around for a long time, played in a lot of big games. We built that season for 2 years to that game, so it's pretty special. Not just to win a grand final, but actually able to celebrate it probably for 10, 15 minutes on the field as well. I think that makes it even more special.
Going to presentation, and you yourself, you were sort of, I know you're not much of an individual accolade, but it would have been nice to get the Dally M that you rightfully deserved that year. Getting named Clive Churchill, what did that mean for yourself personally, and as like I said, especially you sort of got dudded the Dally M that year, missing out on that and getting that Clive Churchill pretty special award for yourself?
Yeah, I'm always a bit funny with these things when I talk about it. I suppose there's a lot of agendas in rugby league. So I think not so much that I got dudded in the Dally M, but I do think that my season of play probably helped me get the Clive Churchill. If I'm being honest, I'm not saying it because you're here, but I think you probably had a better game than me in the grand final. I also think probably Jeremy Smith and maybe even Dean Young had a better game than me in the grand final. But at the end of the day, I got it. I got it awarded to me. I'm very grateful for getting the award. And when I think back now, when people talk about my career and what I've achieved, and having that on my resume is something I'm very proud of, and like I said, very grateful for. But I think if the Roosters won, I've said this a few times, if the Roosters won, Todd Carney was going to get the Clive Churchill, and if we won, I was going to get it. I just think sometimes there's a lot of agendas in rugby league, and sometimes we probably need some outsourced voting on some of these things. I think sometimes when you have rugby league players and ex-players and media and journalists voting on some of these special awards, I think sometimes they can be pushed a certain way or through a certain agenda. So, yeah, at the end of the day, like I said, I'm very grateful for getting it. It's something I didn't really think about. But when you're all said and done, you finish your career and you look at your jerseys on the wall or your medals and your awards. Something I'm very, very proud of for sure.
Yeah, exactly, and I think it was a reward of what you'd been able to achieve, and especially for our team to be able to get us where you got, and being such a linchpin of what we were able to achieve. It was pretty awesome to be able to get it capped off in that way, and rolling into a little bit of a celebration. And what do you remember about the celebrations afterwards?
No, I remember going back to Cogra. I remember obviously a lot of our fans watched the game at Cogra. They had a big screen there. There was a heap of fans watching it there and a bit of a stage. So we went back there and singing the song with the team and all our staff and everyone that had been involved all year, and obviously all the fans that were there. And a lot of the fans come back from the game to Cogra as well. We stayed the night in the sheds, which was interesting. A couple of cigars getting passed around, having a few puffs of them for the first time, me personally, so that was interesting as well. And then we caught a double-decker bus down to Wollongong to do all our the same thing with our Wollongong fans, support and celebrate with them and thank them for the year and enjoy it with them as well. And that was an interesting ride down with a double-decker bus and a few people in the streets waving to us and whatnot.
I think everyone in all of Sydney and Wollongong that has got a red and white jersey says they were at Cogra that day after the grandstand. There must have been 400,000 people there. Pretty much every single person I've ever met that goes to Dragons was back there, including young Rick that works for the NRL. He tells me he was there but never spotted, and everyone was always there. So, and it did sort of feel like that, I suppose, when we did get back to Cogra and Oakey there, and hence the reason why no one was there on the double-decker bus at 8 a.m. the next morning.
No, it was a cool experience. It was cool to kind of celebrate it twice too. I think obviously at Cogra with our fans there, and then take the bus trip down the next day and do it again.
And your house at the time had a pretty good fit out for an after party. Do you remember the after party after presentation that year? All I remember was you had a disco ball. Do you remember that?
Yeah. I moved around a couple of different apartments. I'm trying to think what year I was at what apartment, but wouldn't say the house.
Disco ball. How many disco balls did you have?
But I had this one. It wasn't a disco ball. It was a disco light, but it had you could hook your phone up to it so you could play music, and the lights would go to the music, the beat. So I didn't mind going out for a few drinks and things back then. So I'd made sure that light went back to Brisbane for my off seasons and my parties with my mates in Brisbane, and I was back in the parties with all the boys after games. So
Yeah, well, good times, my friend. That's about it. Anything you want to say, mate? Any memories that I didn't touch on that make you feel warm and fuzzy? I know you love getting warm and fuzzy.
Well, it's pretty good. It's good just chatting about it. I think it's good to remember those good times in your life because, it's been, that was 10 years ago and I haven't been, well, I've been back to a grand final and we lost it with
We don't need to talk about that, mate. It's not
10
about that.
seconds ago. So it's hard to get there and even harder to win. So, yeah, it's good times when you can remember those things and the things that you worked for so hard in your career that if you're lucky enough to even get there once and win one, then you always have those memories. And all the people you do it with too, I think you always have a special bond because, you work so hard from November all the way till October for one common goal and to do it with 17 guys and a lot of ups and downs and hurdles along the way and get it all done and do it. It's the best thing you can do in rugby league.
Awesome. Well said, my friend. That's giving me tingles and I look forward to catching up and giving you a cuddle that you don't want.
Sounds good.
See you, brother.
Thanks, mate.
On the next episode of the True Believers podcast, I'm sitting down with my mate, Premiership winning 5'8", Jamie Soward.
Yeah, when we meet in 10 years' time, we want to shake hands and have our rings clink. Yeah, that always stood out in my mind because it's a symbolism of the people that the greats of the game have